I think I found the easiest way to accelerate the growth of your B2B service business, aka agency, and sign more paying clients. And no, I don't have a course or some low-ticket community to sell you, because that's just what everybody assumes is happening when you see a 20-something-year-old talking about how to make more money online. Instead, I'm going to give you a simple technique that leverages DeepSeek AI that I implemented with our team last week to generate us roughly an extra $50,000. This is something that literally anyone can do with their business very simply with essentially zero extra effort. But if you can't sit through this simple 10-minute video where I cover step-by-step exactly what we did so you can just copy us and do the same in your business, I'm sorry to say, but there's not much I can do to help you. So buckle up, full screen this thing, and let's hop right into it. Now, before we hop into things today, I'm going to cover some proof because it is so hard to find people online who you can actually trust these days. These are two reports from my closers, top two closers in November of 2024, bringing in 61,700, 52,200, 31.25% offer to close rate, and a 32.43% offer to close rate. These stats are pretty solid. They're not the best in the industry, but they're also above average and definitely not the worst. We also closed 575 clients last year from the first of the year all the way through to the end. So clearly we know what we're talking about when it comes to getting more deals across the line for your B2B service business, aka agency, fast. Now, with that out of the way, I want to give you a bit more context as to what I'm actually talking about here. And to do that, I need you to know a little bit more about track and field. Now, if you ever watch the Olympics, World Championships, you know that the United States of America typically has some of the fastest runners and athletes in the world. And because of that, they come home with a lot of medals. Now, there's one event in the track and field space that the United States tends to struggle with more than others. And they're actually considered to be cursed if you go and search this up online. But that is the men's 4x100 relay. Now, that is because we have runner number one, who may or may not be one of the top 10 fastest runners in the world, running very quickly, right? This is my way of showing quickly, toward runner number two. And as he runs toward runner number two, he's got to do something very important, which is take this little baton and hand that off to runner number two. Now, what seems to plague the US men's 4x100 team more than any other team is this handoff. Because every time this runner gets close to this one, they either drop the baton onto the ground, or they screw the hand up off and get disqualified, or because they screw the hand up off, they can't be as fast as the other teams, they lose a few milliseconds, and medal lost. Now, this is not a curse. This is a product of something that we fail to do very often in our sales and tend to ignore, right? When we're in sales, there's really two places that we can lose the deal. Okay, the first place that we can lose the deal is in the handoff, or in the handoffs, depending how many calls you have, whether it's a one call close, two call close, setter to closer, you name it. The second is in the close, where we do our objection handling, right? Our pitch, all this stuff. Okay. Between these two places, there's one that gets way more focus than the other, and it's usually this, right? We spend a lot of time doing our role plays, we spend lots of time doing our call reviews, team meetings, stand-ups, all this stuff, making sure that we can train away that skill gap to be as small as possible and eliminate as much of that art of the close, objective sales BS that tends to get that pendulum swinging. And it's a reason why you'll see guys at 30%, 15% close rates month to month. Now, because we spend so much time training this, a lot of our sales teams end up like the US track team, where we have, let's say, maybe number 4 fastest runner in the world and number 3 fastest runner in the world, maybe number 1 fastest runner in the world around the track, a little bit further ahead. But the problem is we still can't take home the medal. And why is that? The reason why is because we don't train the handoff enough. We don't want to end up like this US 4x100s track team, because when people come to work with us, when people watch us on national television, we want to be winning medals, right? Winning medals in business is making money, being able to scale, providing for the people on your team, providing value to the market, you name it. So instead of focusing all of our time on this training here to become better at closing, better at objection handling, we can spend a lot more time training the handoff. And the reason why this is so important is because in a study ran by Forrester, 50% of buyers will feel frustrated when there's a lack of information or an inefficiency of transfer of information between one party and the next during their buying process. And that's where a lot of deals are ultimately lost in your sales process. The other thing is your sales team is spending, right? Spending probably between 10%, maybe even upwards of 30% of their time doing admin tasks. And a good portion of this admin task work is just keeping the notes up to date, making sure that when we do these handoffs, right, this is why notes and CRMs are so important, people aren't confused. We don't repeat information, we don't annoy our prospects, and we don't detract from our chances of turning them into a paying customer and potentially changing their life and their business. So really what we need to do is find a way to make this handoff more efficient between our setters and our closers, or from one closer to the next, if you are re-engaging leads later down the line. And also ensure that we have enough time on this call, right? Average sales call is usually booked for a 45-minute slot, but we do have 15-minute buffers, right? So Usually a sales call will be about an hour. Do we have enough time on this call to close them? Do we have enough time on this call to do the objection handling? Or are we spending most of our time doing things that we could have covered and eliminated by making our handoff better? So by now you're probably wondering, well, Noah, how can I do that? Well, I'm going to walk you through right now. Right now, most of your processes, right, for sales, so let's say typical sales process, right, will look like you get a lead on the phone, you do an intro, you set your frame, then you do a little bit of a discovery phase. Then you go and you kind of build that pain cycle and that value gap, right? Pain cycle plus value gap. Really build that emotional dissonance between their current situation and making that seem like something that they need to get out of and increasing their desire to achieve another future situation or goal, right? Once we do this, then we're usually into our demo, maybe doing some paradigm shifts in here while we can as well. And then after the demo, we're getting into our temp check, right? This all sounds pretty familiar to you all. Temp check, excuse my bad writing as well. It's been a long day. And then we're off into sort of price pitch and objection overcome, right? Now, if you look at this structure, and you pay attention to where we spend the most time. We'll probably spend, roughly a few minutes here, so 3 minutes. And then on discovery, this is where we spend a good portion of the call. We'll probably spend roughly 20 minutes here, maybe 25 if you're slow. This pain and value gap section, we might spend another 10 to 15 minutes. Let's put 12 minutes, 12.5 minutes. This demo, we're going to spend probably another 10 minutes here. And then you're going to answer some questions as well. So roughly 10 minutes. Temp check, we're going to do another 5 minutes. And then this price and objection overcome, some people need a lot of work here, and you might be looking at, upwards of 20 minutes, right? So 20 minutes plus. This is a lot more than an hour if the prospect is slow. If you're doing it right, this will add up to roughly an hour and you'll get there. I've seen so many calls where this pain cycle and value gap, this takes longer than 12 and a half minutes. This price and objection overcome, people spend 30, 40, 50 minutes on this. Obviously, if you're a better closer, you won't have to spend quite as long because you'll spend the earlier parts in your call removing these things as obstacles and not objections, but that's for another video. Long story short, a good portion of this call, one of the longest portions of this call is done here in the discovery phase. So if instead we could just erase this, we can save ourselves a good portion of time in our sales call. Now, to do this, we're going to adjust our setting process. So what I want you to do before we go and talk about DeepSeek is change your setting process to look something like this. You're going to have a little intro, right? I don't know what your setting processes look like right now, but we're going to change them. Then we're going to get into, qualifying. So that'll be for financials. Are they running the right size business for your offer? So on and so forth. Then we're going to audit. So we're going to learn a little bit more about what's going on wrong in their business, their current situation, their pain points, their short-term goals, their short-term dream outcome, all these good things. And then we're going to provide some value. Provide value. Hey, here are certain things that I think you could improve about your business. Let's get onto a call where I can break this down and give you a more personalized, actionable step-by-step roadmap on how to implement that, whether you work with us or not. Then you're going to go ahead and pitch the call. Pitch call. And then you're going to set expectations, do things like send them over Loom videos, let them know you're adding them to a WhatsApp group chat, so on and so forth. If you want to learn how to improve your show rate and what you should be doing here to set expectations, go ahead and watch my show rate video. I'll link it below and also at the end of this video. Now, the key difference here is if you were to eliminate everything out of this process except for one thing, it would be this audit section. What I want you to do in this section is ask offer-specific questions. What are things that are going to allow you to delete this discovery phase from your sales process and have all the information you need to go and build the right pain cycles and value gaps on the sales call without having to actually go and cover that all on the sales call, and instead cover it in the setting call. So questions like this would be like, what's your offer? What's your current way of getting clients? What's your close rate? What's your show rate? What's your current cost per lead? Whatever services you're providing, make sure you have all the context you need to understand where they are in relation to your benchmarks, so on and so forth. Once we take care of this in our setting process, again, if anything, include the audit. Obviously, make sure you're using a CRM for a call recording. If you're not, go high level close. Pretty much any CRM will do this. Just make sure you have it turned on. You're going to take this prompt, copy the call's transcript from the setting call that you just set on your closer's calendar or triaged, and you're going to copy this exact prompt into either ChatGPT or DeepSeek, whatever you prefer to use. DeepSeek's great for this. I just performed a triage call as an SDR for a sales team and set a sales call for one of my closers. I need you to digest the transcript from the call and present me an overview in note form for each of the following categories of information. Leave out any summary at the end of the overview, as these notes will be copied and shown to our leads on the next call. And in your summary, include timestamps for the closer to reference from the call transcript beside each of the summary notes you include for all the notes where applicable. Bold each title and leave the text in brackets out of the titles in your processed information, but use it for reference on what notes to include for each category of information. This is a run-on sentence, but it's okay because we're directing DeepSeek properly. Do this, and then for all this stuff down here, this will be offer specific, right? So what you're gonna do is, write down the headlines that you want on that sheet. So for us, current situation and problem, their offer, their target market, acquisition channel, right? And then in brackets, what you're gonna do is basically just specify what kind of information the AI should be looking for in your call transcript. So for example, for current situations and problems, basically, this is what does the lead feel is holding their business back? What are the problems they're facing in their business? Why is the lead on the call with the seller? And what are they hoping to accomplish or solve by the end of the call? For the offer, what's the lead's one-liner offer for their customers? What is the price for that offer? And do they have split payment options? Do they have a guarantee? When you implement this, at the very bottom, you're gonna paste the call transcript that you copied from your CRM. What you should end up with is something like this. So this is actually a business triage from one of our setting calls. And this is what you should get out of DeepSeek or ChatGPT when you implement that prompt. Now, if you just click the copy button at the very bottom of its response, you can paste it into a Google Doc without changing the formatting. It'll keep all the bold text and the lines and all that good stuff. So that's the easiest way to do this. Just make a folder on your Google Drive that your closers and your setters can access, and just name the files on a template with your prospects' names. The other thing you can do, obviously, which is super smart, is go put it in your CRM's notes. But I prefer to actually link those Google Docs so that we can keep it easy to read, because if you paste it into your CRM's notes, it'll usually lose the formatting. Now, current situation and problems, right? Over here, we talked about in brackets what's included there. Let's take a look. This lead is struggling from a lack of scalability due to requiring a demo call with their leads before that customer can purchase. Obviously, there's a little bit of multi-stakeholder engagement here that's making this challenging. They're struggling from time constraints because they're handling the entire business on their own, operations, sales, marketing, and that's making it difficult to grow. Notice there's also timestamps here, as we discussed in that prompt, that will help identify where to reference in the call transcript if you want to get more details. It's outbound heavy. They need something more predictable from an acquisition channel perspective, and they want a purchase option on the website to help more conversions. I don't actually think this is a good idea for their service, but that's beside the point. We can keep going, right? It gives very detailed stuff about their offer, their pricing tiers, their planned price increases, subscription models, all this stuff, target markets down to the T. And again, this is just because of the questions that we've added into the settings script over here in the audit section. So if you're missing any information, just go adjust those questions and make sure that you get the information you need from your leads in your setting calls. Now, the coolest part about this is, as we start looking at the bottom here, these are the financial qualifiers that really, really matter. And we can also hold our leads accountable to on the sales call when you're chatting with them as a closer. What's your current monthly revenue, right? I'm doing $11,000. What is your last month revenue? What's your current month pacing? What's your short-term goal? Right? They want to get from 11K to 22K, and they also would love to, in an ideal world, increase that revenue to 450 to 500K annually while maintaining the same profit margins. These are all great things to bring up on the closing call that will help you, one, overcome objections, but two, serve your prospect better and make sure they get the most value out of the calls that you book with them. Right? The other question that we do like to ask and make sure that we have the frame set for in our setting process is their investment ability. Right? So here, they didn't give a dollar amount, but the company does operate at a 25 to 40% margin, depending on those development costs. So this is a good part to include in your prompt. We also do include a section for objections, as I showed in that prompt. What are some of their concerns with the service offering that your setter discussed with them, with the advice that your setter provided to them, so you can come prepared to that closing call and make sure that you don't get blindsided by objections that you didn't know would come up in the first place. If you've made it to the end of this video, thank you. I hope it means that I provided you the value that you came here looking for. If you have any questions about the things we covered today, business or just life in general, drop them below in the comments and I'll do my best to answer as soon as possible. See you in the next one.